What happens when a decades-old trade partnership suddenly transforms into a high-stakes economic standoff? For generations, Canada and the United States have enjoyed one of the world's deepest and most mutually beneficial commercial relationships. From energy and raw materials to manufactured goods and agricultural products, the two economies are so intricately intertwined that a ripple on one side inevitably sends waves across the border. Yet, in recent years, this win-win narrative has been painfully disrupted by an escalating tariff war, and at its center lies a showdown over steel, aluminum, and even the electricity that powers American households. It all began when President Trump, citing national security concerns, imposed an additional 25% tariff on imported steel and aluminum. For Canada, historically one of the largest suppliers of both metals to the US, this move was nothing short of a slap in the face. Ottawa had hoped only for a fair, mutually rewarding business partnership, not punitive duties designed to hobble its exports. Understandably, Canada found itself at a crossroads: accept the tariffs and endure their consequences, or fight back using every tool at its disposal. Almost immediately, the newly announced duties on Canadian steel and aluminum began to bite. Economists warned that the tariffs would cripple key sectors of the Canadian economy, pushing the trade deficit to record highs. Factories that once thrived on steady American orders were forced to downsize or close altogether. Unemployment crept upward in once prosperous manufacturing towns. Companies that had long considered the United States their most reliable customer suddenly faced the daunting task of finding alternative markets or absorbing steep losses. In response, Ottawa deployed a calibrated set of retaliatory measures: selective counter-tariffs on a range of US goods including agricultural products, machinery and equipment. The federal government's initial strikes, roughly totaling $30 billion in affected American exports, were intended both as a warning shot and as leverage to bring Washington back to the negotiating table. But those measures, while substantial, paled in comparison to the potential weapon that provincial leaders were now contemplating. Enter Ontario Premier Doug Ford, whose province sits atop one of Canada's most significant energy reserves. Ontario and its neighbour Quebec together account for much of the electricity exported to the northeastern United States, enough that, should those cross-border flows be throttled or halted, American utilities in Minnesota, New York and Michigan could face serious power shortages and soaring prices. Ford's declaration was unequivocal: "We're going to land every bit of it we've got." Many interpreted this as a threat to pull the plug on electricity exports. Others saw it as code for escalated counter-tariffs, a deepened ban on US government procurement, or a full removal of American alcohol from LCBO shelves. Some even speculated about the province courting foreign investors to supplant American buyers altogether. Whatever the precise mix, it was clear that Ontario was prepared to push the envelope far beyond Ottawa's earlier measures. Within weeks, Ontario enacted a 25% surcharge on electricity exported to the United States, an unprecedented levy that Premier Ford publicly tied to President Trump's steel and aluminum tariffs. Ford lamented the injustice visited upon the American people, whom he felt had done nothing to deserve a trade war, and squarely placed the blame on Trump. He estimated the surcharge would tack an extra $100 per month onto the average American bill, generating up to $400,000 in daily revenue for Ontario. Ford pledged to use those proceeds to lighten the load on Ontario taxpayers by cutting their own electricity rates. The optics were powerful. Canada's largest province wielding the power grid itself as both shield and sword. Beyond mere symbolism, the surcharge underscored a strategic reality. While the US can impose steep duties on steel and aluminum, Canada controls critical energy infrastructure that the northern states depend upon. In effect, Ford had revealed Canada's hidden hand in a high-stakes game of economic brinkmanship. Yet Ontario's gambit was only one facet of a broader Canadian counter-strategy. At the federal level, Ottawa quietly expanded tariffs on selected American agricultural goods: dairy, eggs, certain fruits and vegetables, ranging from 10 to 25%. These measures, though more modest in scale, targeted products that hit US farmers and processors in swing states, adding political pressure to the economic pain. Meanwhile, Canada pursued a longer-term offensive, diversifying trade partnerships, ramping up domestic production, and investing in infrastructure projects designed to move Canadian goods to global markets faster, bypassing the United States whenever feasible. Leading that push for economic diversification is Mark Carney, former governor of both the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England. Carney and provincial premiers alike have advocated for onshoring, bringing manufacturing back home, and for expanding market access in Asia, Europe, and beyond. Under discussion are ambitious port expansions on both coasts, upgrades to rail networks, and investments in green energy and digital infrastructure. The aim is to reduce Canada's reliance on a single trading partner, blunting the impact of any future US policy shifts. These parallel strategies, short-term retaliation and long-term restructuring, reflect a new reality in Canada, that economic interdependence with the United States, once taken as a given, now carries real strategic risk. Every time one side raises the stakes with additional levies, the other must respond, lest it appear weak. The result is a tariff tug-of-war that threatens to shake the foundations of an economic partnership built over decades. What does this mean for Canadians and Americans alike? On one level, higher prices. Steel and aluminum producers in Canada struggle to compete, layoffs mount, and factories shut down. In the US, consumers, especially in the northern states, face the prospect of steeper energy bills or intermittent supply, not to mention the knock-on effects of higher manufacturing costs. Politically, both countries risk stoking domestic frustration. Canadian industries and workers demand decisive federal and provincial action, while US voters in affected regions grow wary of a president who, they feel, picked an avoidable fight with Canada. Perhaps more concerning is the precedent being set. If Canada and the United States are willing to weaponize steel, aluminum, and electricity, what stops either side from extending similar tactics to other vital sectors? Agriculture, technology, aerospace, the integrated supply chains that once undergirded North American competitiveness could fray, with companies relocating, investment decisions stalled, and jobs scattered to more stable markets abroad. Yet amid the uncertainty, there is cause for cautious optimism. Carney's vision of a diversified, resilient Canadian economy has gained traction among business leaders and policymakers. New trade deals with the European Union and Pacific Rim countries offer Canada alternative outlets for its exports. Provincial governments are contemplating partnerships with non-US investors, and behind closed doors, Ottawa and Washington continue to negotiate, mindful that the damage caused by sustained tariff battles ultimately leaves both sides worse off. Still, the clock is ticking. If the current standoff deepens, Canada's retaliatory measures could escalate further, touching sectors far beyond steel, aluminum, and electricity. And in an age where populist politics and protectionist impulses have global reverberations, a spark in the Canada-US relationship could ignite broader instability in world trade. So we return to our original question. What happens when a tariff war escalates beyond mere duties to encompass energy, agriculture, and the very infrastructure that binds two economies together? The answer, as both nations are discovering, is that a lose-lose transaction looms on the horizon unless cooler heads prevail, and the two strongest, wealthiest, and safest nations on Earth choose diplomacy over dueling tariffs. In the months ahead, Canada's bold moves, like Ontario's electricity surcharge and Carney's diversification plan, will be put to the test. Will these strategies successfully cushion the blow and open new markets? Or will they further inflame tensions, deepening the trade rift with America? As we watch this high-stakes drama unfold, one thing is clear. The Canada-US economic partnership has entered uncharted territory, and its outcome will shape the future of North American commerce for years to come.